The Dominari Empire was feared across many star systems. They had strong fleets, strict laws, and a habit of capturing any ship that entered their space without permission. To them, it was normal. To others, it was cool. When the human colony ship Hope's Journey drifted into their territory, the Dominari treated it like any other case. They captured the ship, boarded it, and separated the people inside. There were over 200 adults and 43 children. The adults were taken to one prison block, the children to another. Commander Zex, a tall alien with scaled skin, gave the order calmly. "This is standard procedure," he told his officers. "Adults and juveniles must always be separated. It is safer this way." His words sounded logical, but they would soon prove to be the biggest mistake the Dominari Empire had ever made. At first, everything seemed normal. The human prisoners were secured. The guard reported no problems. But then something strange began to happen. Messages started arriving from the Empire's allies. The Voran ambassador rushed into the chamber, his 12 eyes blinking with panic. "You imprisoned human children," he shouted, his voice shaking. "Are you completely insane?" Commander Zex frowned, confused. "They are unharmed. They are separated for safety. This is protocol." The ambassador stepped back, trembling. "You don't understand. You cannot understand. Free them now, or you have doomed us all." Before Zex could argue, the zealot representative stood up, her voice sharp with fear. "You made the greatest mistake possible. Do you know what happens when you threaten human young? Adults may fight when challenged. But humans, when you take their children, they transform. They become something the galaxy has not seen since the Precursor Wars." With that, she turned and stormed out. Her ship left orbit within the hour. Zex felt unease. He ordered calm across the station, but more disturbing news followed. The Krillians, a violent species that loved war, sent only one message before cutting contact. "You are on your own. May your gods have mercy." Within a single day, every ally abandoned Dominari space. Trade routes closed. Embassies were evacuated. Communications ended. The Empire, once feared, was suddenly alone. Commander Zex paced his chamber, struggling to understand. What is happening? Why would they all abandon us over human juveniles? They are simply children. But then, the scanners gave the first real answer. Far away in deep space, human ships were moving. At first, 1 or 2, then dozens, then hundreds. Fleets leaving Earth, fleets leaving colonies, fleets leaving every station where humans lived. Not just warships, but everything. Civilian craft, mining vessels, cargo freighters, even ships so old they belonged in museums. Lieutenant Var reported with trembling hands. "Commander, it is not only fleets. It is individuals, traders abandoning their jobs, diplomats walking out of talks, scientists leaving decades of work. All of them. Every human is heading this way." The chamber grew silent. Then a transmission came through. Zex expected a human admiral or a politician, but instead the screen lit up with the face of an older woman. She was plain, wearing simple clothes, her hair tied back. Behind her stood an endless crowd, millions of human faces stretching as far as the eye could see. Her voice was calm but heavy with power. "Commander Zex, my name is Mrs. Patterson. I taught 3rd grade for 30 years. Do you know what happens when someone harms human children?" Zex opened his mouth, but no sound came. She continued, her eyes unblinking. "We do not send only soldiers. We do not send only leaders. We all come, every parent, every teacher, every neighbor, every stranger who has ever cared for a child. You have awakened something older than our ships, older than our cities. You have triggered the human protection instinct, and for that there will be no mercy." The transmission ended. At that same moment, the scanners screamed louder. Human ships were appearing in Dominari space, blinking out of hyperspace one after another. Not sleek war machines, but improvised monsters. Cargo freighters covered in cannons. Pleasure yachts turned into bombs. Mining rigs rebuilt into rams. Even an old cruise liner carrying a massive drill, large enough to pierce a planet. This was not a war fleet. This was something more dangerous. This was humanity itself. Commander Zex finally began to understand. They had not just captured prisoners. They had touched something sacred, something untouchable. The humans were not coming for negotiation. They were not even coming for war. They were coming for their children. And nothing in the galaxy would stop them. Commander Zex tried to stay calm, but his mind was spinning. The humans were not behaving like any other species. When other races lost ships, their leaders sent soldiers or diplomats to fix a problem. Humans were different. Every single one of them was moving, leaving their homes, their jobs, their lives. It was like the entire species had become one mind, one purpose. The Dominari guards did not understand the fear. They laughed in the detention halls, mocking the small human children. To them, children were weak, helpless, no more than loud juveniles. They had no idea that those helpless children were already planning something. In the juvenile block, 10-year-old Lucichin sat cross-legged on the floor, her sharp eyes studying the control panels. She whispered to the others, her voice steady even though her heart pounded. "We can fight back. My teacher told me once, machines are just puzzles, and puzzles can always be solved." The other children, scared but determined, gathered around her. Using meal trays, toy blocks, and even broken parts of their bed frames, they began to build. It looked like a game, but it was more. Lucy was making a transmitter. Meanwhile, back in the command chamber, another message arrived. This time from the Ether Isle, a species of scholars who rarely spoke in absolutes. Their message was short but chilling. The humans are not coming to fight you. They are coming to erase you. Zex's scales itched with unease. He wanted to dismiss the message, but the scanners showed more and more human ships arriving every hour. They were surrounding Dominari space, closing it in like a tightening net. Lieutenant Var whispered nervously, "Commander, they are not waiting for orders. They are not acting as soldiers. They are acting as one people. Sir, I think they are coming not just for war, but for something worse." Inside the detention block, Lucy finally completed her device. She pressed the switch, and suddenly the lights of the facility flickered. Patterns of flashing beams filled the holes, making the Dominari guards clutch their heads in confusion. The lights created a rhythm that made the aliens nauseous. At the same time, a strange sound filled the speakers. It was a high-frequency tone that shook the Dominari guards to their bones. They roared in pain, covering their ears, while the children smiled quietly. Then the food replicators began spitting out strange, smelly meals. Sloppy lumps of something called school cafeteria meatloaf. The guards sniffed it and gagged, confused and furious. The children laughed. It was exactly what they had wanted. Lucy held her transmitter close and whispered into it. "Mrs. Patterson, we're okay. We're giving them the Home Alone treatment, just like you taught us." The signal went through. On Earth, in orbit, across the human fleets, the message reached every human A. For a moment, there was silence, and then a roar of voices, billions of them, rising together in one answer. "We are still coming." That roar shook even the most distant listening posts. The Galactic Council met in emergency session. For the first time in history, every species agreed on something. Not out of mercy, but out of fear. They sent an ultimatum to the Dominari Empire. Release the human children at once, or face complete isolation. No trade, no alliance, no protection. You will stand alone against the storm. Back on the Dominari station, Commander Zex felt the noose tightening. He ordered his officers to prepare for negotiations, but it was already too late. Human ships kept appearing, their numbers growing so fast it was almost impossible. Cargo haulers armed with plasma cannons, pleasure yachts strapped with explosives, mining ships transformed into battering rams. Even ancient vessels pulled out of museums and refitted for battle. Each ship carried not just weapons but also people, ordinary humans with fury in their hearts. farmers, engineers, artists, shopkeepers, all of them coming for one purpose, to save their children. The station shook as Luce's device sent another wave through the systems. Doors opened and closed randomly. Security turrets spun in circles, unable to fire. One boy laughed as he convinced guards that the group of children were his pets, and the guards, confused by the strange human logic, actually believed him. Another girl reprogrammed the lock so they would only respond to the phrase Simon says. The children were no longer helpless prisoners. They were rebels, clever and fearless. And outside, the storm of humanity kept growing. Commander Zek stood at the center of chaos, realizing the truth too late. He had not just captured human children. He had triggered something older than war, older than diplomacy. He had awakened the one force the galaxy would never be able to fight, the unstoppable love of humans for their young. The Dominari station was no longer in control. What had begun as a normal capture operation had turned into pure chaos. Lights flickered in strange patterns, making the guards dizzy. Speakers blared strange sound that rattled the Dominari scales. Food machines poured out foul-smelling human meals that no alien could eat. And in the middle of all this madness, 43 human children laughed, whispered, and worked together like a secret army. Commander Zek slammed his claws on the table. Enough! Contain them, he shouted. But the reports from his officers only made his scales grow colder. The detention block had become a playground of traps. Doors opened at random. Alarms screamed without reason. Entire squads of guards found themselves locked inside storage rooms while the children ran free in the halls. Zex had underestimated them. He had thought children were weak. Now, he realized there was something far worse, unpredictable. At the same time, the storm outside grew larger. The humans kept arriving. The scanners showed ships dropping out of hyperspace in endless numbers. It was not just Earth's navy. It was everything. Old freighters, rusty transports, and massive colony vessels, all armed in strange ways. Some carried drills meant for planets. Some carried huge explosives. Some carried nothing but angry humans ready to ram their ship into Dominari steel. The officers whispered in fear. Commander, they are not just sending soldiers. They are sending everyone. And then another transmission came through. This time, it was not Mrs. Patterson. It was a group of human parents, standing together. Their voices were calm, but their eyes burned with fire. Return our children, they said. Do it now, or there will be nothing left of your empire. Zex tried to reason. He sent back a message. They are unharmed. They are secure. This can be resolved. But no human replied. Instead, the scanners lit up again. Human ships were locking positions. They were forming walls, rings, and layers of defense around the Dominari station. No one had ever seen a fleet like this, messy, chaotic, and yet strangely perfect. It was not military design. It was instinct, raw and terrifying. Inside the prison, Lucy and the other children continued their rebellion. One girl, only 7 years old, had hacked into the cleaning robots. Now dozens of small machines zipped through the halls, spraying slippery foam that sent guards sliding helplessly across the floors. A boy reprogrammed the cameras so they only showed cartoons on the monitors. The security staff yelled in frustration as screens filled with dancing animals instead of real footage. The children were fearless. Each prank, each trap was their way of fighting back. They were not just surviving. They were winning. Zex could feel it. The balance of power was slipping away from the Dominari, not because of fleets, not because of weapons, but because of something far more dangerous, human unity. The galaxy had always known humans were stubborn, but no one had imagined this. Every human alive was moving together like a single wave, powered by love, fury, and memory of their children. The Ethereal sent another warning to the Council. The humans are not here to bargain. They are here to destroy. Release the children, or there will be no Dominari Empire left to speak of. But Zex hesitated. Pride was heavy on his shoulders. The Dominari had never surrendered, never bowed. To release the children would mean admitting weakness. As he struggled with the decision, chaos inside the station reached new heights. Luce's transmitter broadcast again, reaching the human fleet. "We're fine. We've turned the whole place into a trap. They can't stop us." The response shook the stars. Billions of human voices, in perfect unison, answered, "We are still coming." The sound echoed not just through comms, but through every ship, every heart, every corner of space where humans lived. It was not only a message, it was a promise. The Dominari Guard began to panic. Some threw down their weapons, refusing to fight against what was coming. Others begged their commander to release the children before it was too late. But Zex's pride kept him frozen. Then, the first human ships powered up their weapons. The scanners showed massive energy readings, more than the station could handle. The humans were preparing to strike. Inside the holes, the children cheered as one final prank took hold. Every door in the prison opened at once, alarms blaring wildly. The children marched out together, carrying blankets, toys, and improvised tools, smiling as though they were leaving a schoolyard. Guards tried to stop them, but the systems refused to obey any command unless the words "Simon says" were spoken. Lucy led the group, her small voice steady. "They are coming for us. We just have to keep going until they arrive." And at that moment, the Dominari Empire realized the truth. It was not their fleets that terrified the galaxy. It was not their weapons. It was the humans themselves, rising as one, unstoppable when their children were threatened. The human fleet had surrounded the Dominari station completely. From every angle, ships of all shapes and sizes floated in silence, weapons armed, engines glowing. It was a blockade unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Not organized by admirals, not planned by generals, but formed by instinct, love, and fury. Inside the station, Commander Zex stood frozen. His pride told him to resist, to show strength. But his instincts told him it was already over. The children were walking freely in the holes, laughing, dragging their blankets behind them like victorious rebels. Guards had lost control. Systems no longer obeyed commands. The station itself felt like it belonged to the children now. The final warning came through the comms. It was not from an admiral or a leader, but from billions of humans speaking at once. The voices overlapped, men and women, young and old, all repeating the same words. "Release them or be erased." The words struck like thunder. Even the toughest Dominari guards lowered their weapons. They had seen many wars, but never this kind of unity, never this kind of unstoppable power. Zex finally gave the order. His voice was bitter, heavy with defeat. "Release the children." But the moment he spoke, a new chaos unfolded. The children had already broken free. They had hacked the systems, unlocked the doors, and marched into the main chamber as if they owned it. One boy even carried a Dominari officer's cap on his head, grinning proudly. A little girl was holding the security system's control rod like a toy. Lucichin stepped forward, her eyes steady. She looked up at Commander Zex without fear. "We didn't need you to release us. We already did it ourselves." The humans outside saw the broadcast. Billions cheered, their voices shaking stars. When the airlocks opened, the children walked out of the station together. They were not crying. They were not broken. They were smiling, covered in paint from pranks, carrying homemade gadgets, dragging their blanket forts. They had turned prison into play, fear into victory. One boy shouted proudly, "We won." Another laughed. They never stood a chance. As they stepped into waiting human ships, the parents rushed forward, arms outstretched, tears flowing. The reunion was not silent. It was loud, full of shouts, sobs, and joy. Mothers and fathers held their children close, promising never to let go again. Teachers hugged their students. Strangers lifted kids onto their shoulders, cheering their bravery. And outside, the human fleet sent one final message to the galaxy. Human children are off limits. No exceptions. No mercy. The message was short, but it spread faster than light. Every species in the galaxy heard it. Every empire, every council, every warlord understood. No one would ever touch human children again. The cost was too great, the risk too terrifying. The Dominari Empire learned the hardest lesson of all. They had thought strength was in fleets and weapons. But they were wrong. True strength was in unity, in love, in the unbreakable bond between humans and their young. That day, the Dominari wrote a new law into their constitution. Never, under any circumstance, interfere with human children. And the galaxy agreed. No species dared to challenge that rule. Not because of diplomacy, not because of fear of war, but because they had all seen what happened when humans rose together for their young. As the fleets began to return home, the galaxies slowly exhaled. Trade routes reopened. Alliances resumed. But something had changed forever. Every species looked at humans with new eyes. They were not just another civilization. They were something ancient, something terrifying, something unstoppable when their children were in danger. In classrooms on Earth, Mrs. Patterson returned to teaching, but she carried a quiet pride in her heart. She had spoken for humanity when it mattered most, and the galaxy had listened. The children of Hope's journey grew older, their story passed down like legend. They were remembered not as victims, but as heroes, the generation that turned prison into a game and forced an empire to its knees. Commander Zex lived with a memory forever. He had commanded many victories, but none of them mattered now. He would always be remembered as a fool who captured human children, the fool who almost ended his empire with one careless order. For the rest of his days, Zex would hear their voices in his sleep. We are still coming. It was not a threat anymore. It was a truth. Humanity was not a people to be conquered. They were a force of nature, bound together by something deeper than war. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, when whispers of human children spread, the words always followed. Do not touch them. Do not even think of it. For if you do, the humans will come.